Let us begin. This is going to be The Reality of Being by Jean de Salzman in her first chapter called A Call to Consciousness. And it begins like this. A child wants to have, the adult wants to be. The wish to be is behind all my manifestations. To learn to see is the first initiation into self-knowledge. We struggle not against something, we struggle for something. I believe I need to pay attention when, in fact, I need to see and know my inattention. When I begin to see, I begin to love what I see. Where our attention is, God is. So this is how Jean de Salzman opens up the chapter with these few core principles that are infused with a lot of meaning, dimension, and depth. So we're gonna skip ahead to one more excerpt called The Life Force. And this is going to be essential to understand the principle about the life force. So Jean de Salzman says, we wish to live, to be in life. From the moment we are born, something in us seeks to affirm itself in the outside world. I want to be heard and seen to devour the world. At the same time, I do not want to be devoured. I want to be first, always. But all too soon, I encounter the resistance of the world, and the basic impulse of self-affirmation has to take others into account. My affirming often assumes curious, even though common, forms such as self-pity or a refusal to express oneself. I wish to live, I agree with life, I do everything to live, and this same force maintains the life of my body. I wish for something or to do something, and when the wish appears, this force is here. It impels me toward manifestation. And so that is going to be the intro excerpt of The Reality of Being. Now we want to go over these principles to develop a deeper understanding. And the first principle is the child wants to have and the adult wants to be. So in our development with awakening, I think this is a core principle where we as human beings are seeking all the ways to want to have something or to obtain something. And so this is a study of our consciousness when we have to be present with that need to have something. Because intrinsically it's within all of us. We need to have something, and if we don't have it, then we throw a fit and we lose control and we disperse our attention and our life force into the external world. Also, we need to come to ourselves and to a place where we are being. So, a core principle within the chapter that is stated too is the question of identity. So, the question of identity is something that we all struggle with because as kids, we are subject to, at first, we are in touch with our essence, and as we develop and as we learn patterns through our outer world, kind of what we mentioned with the life force in that little segment. But when we are forced to begin to develop a sense of self that acts as a wall to decipher and interpret the external world, then comes the question, or then comes to the stage in our development where we have to really evaluate what these things really mean when we are taking in certain impressions and not able to process it in the correct manner. So we tend to build up these impressions and this unhealthy association or attachment to these impressions in the form of the need to identify. So as soon as something is externally expressed, we are inclined to automatically want to identify with the very thing that happens externally, such as someone is, just trying to have a conversation with you, and then you try to respond in the way in which you think that person would want you to respond. There's many different, you could say, quirks in the personality that will automatically react as a fact of habit that we're usually stuck in. We're usually stuck in responding to someone in this manner when they say this thing. So we have to come into question and answer the question, who are we? And so when we don't have something solid or consistent to rest this question in, this, you could say, becomes quite a crisis in the personality when there's no sense of who am I? In the same token, when we get to this question, who am I? This becomes the beginning point of awakening. Because when, as mentioned in the book and then in the first chapter, we start to see this presence that forms itself when we ask this question, who am I? It's an essential question that most of us are looking for that answer. And this is, again, stated in the book. And so the fact that our feelings aren't stable and that we feel the need to obey a certain feeling, or maybe when we're in our feelings, for example, one feeling may start to play itself out, like we start to feel something, but then it doesn't play itself out all the way in which it should. And so we tend to restrict underneath our identities what we are actually feeling. So when our feelings aren't stable and we look for the answers, for example, of who am I, and the feelings aren't stable, this also can lead to a dissatisfaction in the search of oneself when we are not able to see in the feelings what is the true self. So again, the feeling goes from one flow to another, it stops, and then it pours itself out, and it can take you down a winding road, all your feelings, which is totally okay. And this is the process of beginning to awaken when we're able to observe that very thing going on. Another, thing that we turn to in terms of trying to answer this question of who am I is the body. We try to make contact with the body and sensations. And when the body itself is empty and there's no necessarily clear read on like what is the body, again, this also brings the question then, if I'm not the body, then who am I? And so we tend to start to notice how these external forces, for example, are controlling us like puppets. So another example too is when we're in the intellect and we are thinking about all of these ideas and all of these concepts and all of these different things, but this thinking is only rooted in self-interest, and this thinking is only rooted in the common loops that you find yourself stuck in, then there is also no freedom in that, and there is no reality of being, if you will. So we're stuck in this constant loop of wanting to have the answer of who am I and how do I be? How do I be in this life? This is the start of the journey. Now, when we start to notice how life begins to happen without our permission, if you will, or with other processes going on in the background that we're totally unaware of, this then brings us to the realization that we are asleep. That if we were to compare our state of existence to sleepwalking, or even maybe you're trying to stay up all night to get a project done, and you feel yourself falling over into a sleep, and you're just like dozing off, and then you have to wake yourself back up. This is almost the state we are in, for example, when we're lost in our thoughts, and then all of a sudden someone's like, hey, are you there? And then like, hey, what's up? and all of a sudden you snap back into it and you're like, oh, hey, what's up? That's kind of like, this is the level in which a lot of people operate on, and this is the level in which everybody in life is kind of traversing how to be aware in the correct manner in each moment. And so moments like grief and sadness and anger and intense emotions can also jolt us awake. And again, give us a sense of this feeling of I and the real self. So say, for example, you're going through deep grief and you're totally lost and you're like confused, and then all of a sudden everything builds up, and then all of a sudden you're like, this is who I am. This is what I've come to. And you have a moment of seeing, but then you fall back into it again. But these are moments which are important and act as a good sign that you are starting to develop, and you, as stated, the child wants to have, but the adult wants to be. So this is the first segue to learning to be, is that you're asleep and you're a machine reacting to all of these phenomenon that is going on within your experience. We need to grasp the sense of a real I within us. This also puts into question, where am I? Where are you? And this question of where am I will then put into perspective on the real sensation of location of self within the present moment. Because you have to, in a way, feel the sense of belonging and fitting in the right moment. And what's behind this question of where am I is, as stated in the chapter 1, is the feeling of emptiness. So in order to open up a new perception that is beyond the reactions that we normally have against the external world, the perception of self needs to be freed from identification of one center, which is maybe the thinking center. And we have to begin to perceive all of this at once. And there is a part of us that is able to perceive all of these things going on at once, because all of us look for security and stability. And there's no point in finding this stability and security, as we have already tried within our experience by looking through the seeing, or looking through the thinking, looking through the feeling. There's nothing really stable there, because the thinking vanishes, the feelings sway, the body is almost passive in a way, and we have to look deeper. And so this deepness comes when we're empty, devoid of all identification. So we need a quality of attention that is different from our scatteredness from our attention facing outwards. Now, in this moment, I would like you to pay attention to how your attention can be scattered externally. So your attention is going towards your hearing and all the external stuff in your hearing. Your attention is going to your seeing and all the objects around you. Your attention is going to your feeling and projected feelings outwards. And all of this is, you could say, the outward face. And this is a scattered way of existence. But in order to be, we have to realize that in this quality of attention that we have, that is faced externally, there is a mystery. And this mystery is the mystery of your presence and of your true attention. So it's a different quality from just being totally scattered into your thoughts, into your feelings. But there's a mystery there that needs to be uncovered, and we don't know what it is because we're used to being scattered externally. So once we can sit with this inner attention, right? It's not external, it's inner attention. Then the formulation of self can begin. Okay, so we've noticed how we are walking through life almost sleepwalking, or literally almost sleepwalking, going from one thought that is isolated from your feeling, right? We might be stuck in our head thinking something and it's not really what we're feeling. You know, we have to separate ourselves from the disconnection and step into this inner attention which sees it all. And it's quite a mysterious thing to behold. So this is where we're starting to get to, especially in this first chapter, is this search of this inner emptiness and the mystery of presence. And so the one who watches, in a way, is the one that's present. So when you're watching, you are present and you're actively engaged with your experience. So if you're not learning to do the action of watching, which is, again, we've noticed the quality of external attention, and now we've realized that there's a mystery to our presence here that's inner, and we're turning inwards now. This is the watcher, and this is the one that's present. And so we also need to get in touch with the nature of attention. And so we need to know that our full attention only appears when there's an inner need to actually know something. Not just like, oh, I'm gonna change, or oh, you know, I might change this, or I might do this. No, it's like when you have the feeling that you need to know something and you need to get to the bottom of it, that is where full attention will also be present. And the scatteredness will begin to dissipate. So you need to know that you need to know. And this hunger and this desire needs to be there. So when we feel the need to know, then we need to sort out through and free this attention from images, words, knowledge. So sometimes we think that we know something. Sometimes we think that this image that we're beholding in our head is the filter in which we need to see our life through. But our attention can operate free from that. So we need to know that once we can free our attention from the images, words, through not identifying with these things, then our feelings can slow down. Just like the problem we had before, where the feelings are constantly swaying, or you know, you want to express an emotion but it's not going all the way through, or it's stuck. When the attention is freed from images, words, this allows the feelings to really express itself and to slow down. And this is where the inner knowing begins to work. This is what the work is. So ordinary attention is dispersed and reactive. And so we have to make the effort to disengage from that, to disengage from ordinary attention. And again, this is from that desire to know. And so this leads to a crucial point in our development when we enter into moments of darkness and confusion, where there arises this need to see, and which is different from the desire to fix something or to escape something. We tend to get lost in the feeling or the wanting to fix something. We're like, oh, I need to fix this. I hurt somebody, I need to fix this. Or I did this wrong, I need to fix this thing. Or dang, this situation is too intense, I need to escape it. So we need to have this attitude of inner courage and this wanting to see. And when we have this want to see as well, it translates into a sort of body relaxation, which is important to mention, because when you want to see the solution to what is going on, your feeling can start to relax because it knows that the solution is coming. It knows that this seeing, which we also kind of mentioned a little bit further on, but the seeing is almost like the masculine principle. It's the Father, which knows all and sees all. So the body can relax and the feelings can relax when this seeing is present. And so when we allow an expression of a thought to occur or a feeling to occur without identifying, without the need to identify, this is where also that full expression of knowing and feeling can come about. So it's important to have that full range and expression of being and self when we can get in touch with the seeing. And so a very minute detail, especially that's mentioned, is how impressions are received mechanically, and they're filtered through personality and old programming. And so, for example, again, and we kind of covered this in the beginning, where we receive a thought from somebody and we automatically just react, and we're just like, oh, this. That doesn't come from being, that comes from the personality and reacting. When we love the present moment and you try to communicate to me and you're talking to me, I can then, and I have a love for being present, and you say the words that you need to say, I can then take it in and not necessarily react, but be in this emptiness and be in this space of receptivity to really feel the impressions that are going on in between us. So responding to impressions from a deeper place, from the love of being, is another key principle. We also can reach a suspended state in our development, where the will and the desire and the inner effort that we have, begins to culminate. But then comes the question of knowing what you want and knowing what you wish. Because you can do all the work on yourself that you would like to and acquire inner knowing. But if you don't know what you want, then there is no need to continue with what's going on in your inner process and in your life as a whole. So as you start to work on yourself, different ideas, inspirations, or different paths start to open up. And then this comes to question as you're starting to take steps forward. What do you wish to happen, or what do you want to happen? You're now awake, you're now alert. What do you wish? And when we don't have that wish or that desire or that passion, we fall back asleep, deviating ourselves from the aim. And so this is something that only we can answer within ourselves on what we wish moving forward. The work that we're doing here is not about acquiring knowledge, but it's also about being present to what is right now. So your feelings about this moment and how things are is the whole point of this. So we're not working to escape something and to escape ourselves. We are working towards a greater conclusion of the self. And we're working to grow our perception around things. And so the final point made in this book here is going to be the Law of Three, or within Christianity terms, the Holy Trinity, which is God the Father, which is the active force. So this is the source of will, or the I am within somebody, and also can be described as the watcher or the active force that you engage. And so divine intellect is another way to say this as well. We have the Son, which is Jesus Christ, the passive force. So this is incarnation, this is the body, this is limitation, suffering, this is the human condition, this is how we are in our bodies right now, our current state, how we feel about our bodies. This is surrender, sacrifice, and receptivity. These two are in conflict, by the way, in some kind of manner. God the Father, which is the active force, knows all, sees all. The Son, which is limitation, suffering, form, the human condition. And the Holy Spirit, which is the reconciling force, or the neutralizing force, which is a force of grace that binds the two. It's the intuition and the communion aspect of these two forces within mankind. And so when we allow the Holy Spirit to come and dwell within us, we are uniting the Father and the Son in perfect harmony. And so when these two forces, which seem somewhat against each other, as we can also see in the writings of the Bible, where Jesus on the cross says, my God, why have you forsaken me?" We see this mystery revealed to us. My God, why have you forsaken me?" The active force is almost in a way has betrayed the Son, and then the Holy Spirit comes to reconcile all things back to the Father, or back to the passive force. And this is a feedback loop as someone that is practicing the work that we are learning to develop within ourselves. This is the importance of the work here, is that we are unifying the passive force within man that is constantly limited. We're limited in our thinking, we're limited in our feelings, we're limited in our bodies, which is the Son. But we're also enlightened through the Watcher, through the Father, who knows all and sees all, and is constantly engaged with us, constantly overseeing us, and is there. And then we have the Holy Spirit, which unites us and brings harmony between these two principles within us, and brings harmony within the intellect, the feelings, the body, movement, and all such things. This is the reality of being here. Chapter 1, a quick introduction to navigating this awakening process and all things that have to do with our awakening.